Hi guys, this is Shannon. Thanks for joining me on the channel tonight. As promised, I come to you with 8 more titles that are released on May the 9th that I am super excited about. We went over 8 of them yesterday and I have 8 more today, and I couldn't be more excited to tell you about these. They're all a little different than what you usually hear from me. I will admit there's a fair bit of divergence from my usual contemporary fiction new title list here, but I think you're going to enjoy it. And I think some of you who sometimes don't find anything on my list that might really appeal to you are really going to dig this list today. So let's get started. First one is called Bad Vibes Only, and it is by Nora McInerney. The subtitle is, so it's Bad Vibes Only and Other Things I Bring to the Table, and it is a collection of essays. It is published by Atria One Signal Publishers, and it's 224 pages. So the synopsis for this one says, national bestseller. From the host of the podcast, Terrible Thanks for Asking, called A Gift by the New York Times, a raw and humorous essay collection in the spirit of Jenny Lawson and Samantha Irby. Nora McInerney does not dance like no one is watching. In fact, she dances like everyone is watching, which is to say, she does not dance at all. A best-selling author and host of the beloved podcast, Terrible Thanks for Asking, she has captured the hearts of millions with her disarming and earnest approach to discussing grief and loss. Now, with Bad Vibes Only, she turns her eye on our aggressively, oppressively optimistic culture, our obsession with self-improvement, and what it really means to live authentically in the online age. In essays that revisit her cringy past and anticipate her rapidly approaching early middle-aged future, McInerney lays bare her own chaos, inviting us to drop the facade of perfection and embrace that we all are, at best, slightly unhinged. Socrates claimed that the unexamined life is not worth living. Bad Vibes Only is for people who have taken that dictum a bit too far. The overthinkers, the analyzers, the recovering girl bosses, and the burned out personal brand, reminding us that a life worth living is about more than just good vibes. So I like this. I like that Nora McInerney is a little bit cynical. I have listened to her podcast and found it very entertaining. So this book is definitely going to be a gift from her in that regard. And I like the idea that everything isn't just optimism all the time. So, I want to see what she has to say. I'm not a huge Samantha Irby fan, did like Jenny Lawson. So these kinds of essays are hit or miss with me, but I'm really hoping that Nora McInerney is going to be a hit. So let's look at the next one. Number 10 on my overall list, number 2 for today, is American Breakdown by Jennifer London. It is 464 pages and published by Harper Wave. And it has this interesting cover. It's got, the face of a woman and the yellow bird. And the subtitle says, Our Ailing Nation, My Body's Revolt, and the 19th Century Woman Who Brought Me Back to Life by Jennifer London. So I'm assuming this is the 19th century woman who brought her back to life. And I'm not sure what the picture of the little goldfinch has to do with it, but we will find out, I'm sure. So here we go. A silent spring for the human body, this wide-ranging, genre-crossing literary mystery interweaves the author's quest to understand the source of her own condition with her telling of the story of the chronically ill 19th century diarist Alice James, ultimately uncovering the many hidden health hazards of life in America. When Jennifer London became chronically ill after moving from Canada to Maine, her case was a medical mystery. Just 21, unable to hold a book or stand for a shower, she lost her job and consigned herself to bed. The doctors she went to for help told her she was just depressed. After suffering from this enigmatic illness for 5 years, she discovered an unlikely source of hope and a biography of Alice James, the bright, witty, and often bedridden sibling of brothers Henry James, the novelist, and William James, the father of psychology. Alice suffered from a life-shattering illness known as neurasthenia, now often dismissed as a fashionable illness. In this meticulously researched and illuminating debut, London interweaves her own experience with Alice's, exploring the history of medicine and the effects of the Industrial Revolution and late-stage capitalism to tell a riveting story of how we are a nation struggling and failing to be healthy. Although science and the politics behind its funding has in many ways let London and millions like her down, in the end, science offers a revelation that will change how readers think about the ecosystems of their bodies, their communities, the country, and the planet. So I kind of love this. She's got a terrible illness that she can't get diagnosed, and she finds something that feels similar in Alice James from the 19th century. So I can't wait to see how she weaves these two stories together, the contemporary one and the historical one. And I'm always interested in stories about healthcare and medicine in modern America. I think it's just fascinating. I joke that I take so many pills that I'm sponsored by Big Pharma. But, definitely the medical community has done a lot to keep me alive. But there is also a lot that they've never been able to address for me, and that is still really, really hit or miss. So I'm very interested in Jennifer London's story and to see what it is that she chooses to share. So let's move on. Number 3 on today's list, The Eyes and the Impossible by Dave Eggers. And this is by Alfred A. Knopf, and I do not have a page count, but this is also coming out May 9th. And it says, Free Dog Johannes's job is to observe everything that happens in his urban park and report back to the park's 3 bison elders. But changes are afoot, including more humans, a new building, a boatload of goats, and a shocking revelation that changes his view of the world. So you guessed it, this is a children's book. If you know Dave Eggers, you know some of his writing. And I just thought this one sounded really intriguing. I also love the cover with the wolf on the front of it running through this golden background. So I occasionally find a children's book that I have to put on my list, and this was one of them. So this is The Eyes and the Impossible by Dave Eggers. Let's see. The next one, number 4 on my list, is Clearing the Fog by James Jackson. And the subtitle is From Surviving to Thriving with Long COVID, a Practical Guide. So this is incredibly timely. I know so many people who have been impacted by their infections with COVID. And I'm really curious to see what is shared about long COVID in this book. This one is published by Little Brown Spark, and it's 288 pages. Here's what it says. An essential guide, Mark Hyman, author of Young Forever, that's his quote, to navigating life with the cognitive and mental health impairments that often accompany long COVID. Early in the COVID-19 pandemic, the shocking mortality figures obscured the fact that death is not the only adverse outcome of the virus. Today, as many as 30% of COVID-19 survivors still experience symptoms long after their acute illness has passed, with cognitive and mental health problems especially prominent. For long haulers, this struggle with long COVID has irrevocably changed their lives. Many have lost their ability to work, attend school, and look after their children. They often feel misunderstood and dismissed by others. Their once full lives are now filled only with doctor's appointments that seem more and more futile. In Clearing the Fog, neuropsychologist Dr. James C. Jackson offers people suffering from long COVID and their families a roadmap to help them manage their new normal. Focusing on cognitive impairment and mental health issues, Dr. Jackson shares his own experience with chronic illness, relating to long haulers with vulnerability and compassion. Through moving stories as well as hands-on guidance, Clearing the Fog will help long haulers understand their current situation while offering multiple ways to address it, make sense of it, and move through it with the goal of thriving instead of merely surviving. So I had to put this book on the list. I think it's incredibly timely, incredibly relevant. And I know so many people who would be benefited by this book. I also think that it's going to read in a way that is simply interesting. So I think that there will be more to reading this just as a guide to getting over long COVID. If you haven't had long COVID or don't have long COVID, I think there's something to learn here. And I do have a couple of nonfiction books on the list today. So this is one of them, and I hope that it's something that might appeal to you. The blurb on the front cover says, "A thoughtful and practical resource" by Sanjay Gupta, MD, author of Keep Sharp. So let's keep going. The next one is number 5, and it's called Oh My Mother by Connie Wang. And this one is translated from Chinese, and it is 240 pages, published by Viking. And here's the synopsis. Hilarious, candid, and heartfelt. It's like Eat, Pray, Love meets The Amazing Race with hints of Kathy Park Hong's hit essay collection, Minor Feelings. And that's a quote from Oprah. A dazzling mother-daughter adventure around the world in pursuit of self-discovery, a family reckoning, and Asian American defiance. In Chinese, the closest expression to "oh my God" is "wo de ma ya." It's an interjection, a polite expletive, something to say when you're out of words. Translated literally, it means "oh my mother," the instinctual first person you think of when you're on the cusp of losing it or putting it all together. In each essay of this hilarious, heartfelt, and pitch-perfect honest memoir, journalist Connie Wang explores her complicated relationship to her stubborn and charismatic mother, Qing Li, through the "oh my God" moments in their travels together. From attending a Magic Mike strip show in Vegas, to experimenting with edibles in Amsterdam, to flip-flopping through Versailles, this iconic mother-daughter duo venture into the world to find their place in it, and sometimes rail against it, as well as against each other. There are hijinks, capers, and adventures. There is also tenderness, growth, and discovery. In telling these stories about the places they've gone and the things they've done, Wang reveals another story, the true story of 2 women who finally learned that once we are comfortable with the feeling of not belonging, once we can reject the need to belong to any place, community, census, designation, or nation, we can experience something almost like freedom. So I love a good mother-daughter story. I love the relationship between mothers and daughters and how, testing they can sometimes be. And it sounds like we're going to hear a lot of this, and that this mother-daughter pair are put in an incredibly interesting situation traveling around the world together. So I am very interested in this memoir. And I think that the title, Oh My Mother, is perfect. Now, I have to say, I think the cover is terrible. I don't understand it. It's just letters and words with stripes. It says a memoir in 9 adventures. It does say "wo de ma ya" on the front, which means "oh my mother" in Chinese, but I don't know. I just don't get the cover, but that's okay. I'm still really excited about the book. Let's see what we have next. So the next one up on my list is called The Joy of Politics, and it is by Amy Klobuchar, New York Times bestselling author and politician. It doesn't say that on the front cover. The subtitle is Surviving Cancer, a Campaign, a Pandemic, an Insurrection, and Life's Other Unexpected Curveballs. Now, I rarely pick political memoirs on my list. I do like to read them, but I try not to be too controversial. But I think this one is going to be really good, and so I wanted to highlight it today. It is 368 pages, and it's by St. Martin's Press. It's published by St. Martin's Press. I don't think there's any hidden agenda here. I don't think anybody doubts where I sit politically if you watch my videos, but I do try to not be too controversial. So here is the synopsis of The Joy of Politics by Amy Klobuchar, an intimate and revelatory memoir on personal challenges, political turmoil, and the state of American democracy from one of the most effective voices in politics, Amy Klobuchar. During the past few years, as our country has faced unprecedented challenges, Senator Klobuchar has been in the room where it happens, on the Senate floor for critical votes during the pandemic, at the debate podium during one of the most critical presidential elections in U.S. history, and in the Capitol on January 6, 2021, when insurrectionists stormed the building, interrupting the certification of the Electoral College. It was well past midnight when Klobuchar stood beside then Vice President Pence to officially certify President Biden's victory. In her candid, honest, and at times bitingly funny memoir, the pragmatic senator shares insider stories from these historic moments, while also inviting readers into her personal life. An underdog in the 2020 Democratic presidential primary campaign, she built surprising early momentum, only to suspend her candidacy in order to support Joe Biden. Within weeks of returning to work in the Senate, the sudden onslaught of COVID-19 hit her family directly. Her husband got very sick and spent a week in the hospital on oxygen and a month in isolation. Klobuchar shares her experience facing a cancer diagnosis while watching her beloved father succumb to Alzheimer's. She recounts the dramatic narrative of January 6th and how close we came to losing our democracy. And with her signature humor, she reveals what it's like to work with some of her more, interesting colleagues. At the crux of these stories is a narrative of resilience, of personal resilience, and the resilience of a nation, and improbably, joy. So I think it's cute that it's called The Joy of Politics, sort of like the joy of cooking. I do like Amy Klobuchar. I think she's very down to earth and relatable, and I'm assuming that her book will be the same. I'm very interested to hear stories about her colleagues. I'm very interested to hear her take on everything that happened with the pandemic, as well as with January 6th, and a number of other things that have happened while she's been in office. So I did notice I have a lot of nonfiction on today's list, but that's just how it goes sometimes. Nonfiction and children's books. So a happy pairing. Here we go. Let's look at the next one. This one is by Tom Hanks, and it's called The Making of Another Major Motion Picture Masterpiece, a novel. And if you know about Tom Hanks, he had a book several years ago about all of the typewriters that he collects, and sort of weaving those typewriters into essays and short stories that I really enjoyed. So I am looking forward to reading this one. This one is 448 pages, so sizable for an actor author, and the publisher is Knopf. So again, this is called The Making of Another Major Motion Picture Masterpiece. It says, from the Academy Award-winning actor and best-selling author, a novel about the making of a star-studded, multi-million-dollar superhero action film, and the humble comic books that inspired it. Funny, touching, and wonderfully thought-provoking, while also capturing the changes in America and American culture since World War II. Part 1 of this story takes place in 1947. A troubled soldier returning from the war meets his talented 5-year-old nephew, leaves an indelible impression, and then disappears for 23 years. Cut to 1970. The nephew, now drawing underground comic books in Oakland, California, reconnects with his uncle, and remembering the comic book he saw when he was 5, draws a new version with his uncle as a World War II fighting hero. Cut to the present day. A commercially successful director discovers the 1970 comic book and decides to turn it into a contemporary superhero movie. Cue the cast. We meet the film's extremely difficult male star, his wonderful leading lady, the eccentric writer-director, the producer, the gopher production assistant, and everyone else on both sides of the camera. Bonus material. Interspersed throughout are 3 comic books that are featured in the story, all created by Tom Hanks himself, including the comic book that becomes the official tie-in to this novel's major motion picture masterpiece. So I am super excited about this one. Several comic books make up this book. Tom Hanks drew all of them and wrote all of them, as well as this fairly complex, narrative about someone coming back from World War II, his nephew, and then the present day motion picture with all of these characters. I'm impressed. I hope it reads well because I'm super excited about reading it, and I'm sure that many of you are too. My impression has always been, of course I don't know, but my impression has always been that Tom Hanks is a good guy, and I love the idea that he's a celebrated author as well. Let's see, what's next? The next one I have on my list is called Atalanta, a novel by Jennifer Saint, author of Electra. So this is along the lines of Circe and the other mythical kind of rewrites that we've been seeing lately. But this one is called Atalanta. I am not familiar with a mythical character called Atalanta, so this should be very interesting. Again, published May 9th by Flatiron Books, 304 pages. From the beloved best-selling author of Electra and Ariadne, a reimagining of the myth of Atalanta, a fierce huntress raised by bears and the only woman in the world's most famous band of heroes, the Argonauts. Princess, warrior, lover, hero. When Princess Atalanta is born, a daughter rather than a son her parents hoped for, she is left on a mountainside to die. But even then, she's a survivor. Raised by a mother bear under the protective eye of the goddess Artemis, Atalanta grows up wild and free, with just one caveat. If she marries, Artemis warns, it will be her undoing. Although she loves her beautiful forest home, Atalanta yearns for adventure. When Artemis offers her the chance to fight in her name alongside the Argonauts, the fiercest band of warriors the world has ever seen, Atalanta seizes it. The Argonauts' quest for the Golden Fleece is filled with impossible challenges, but Atalanta proves herself equal to the men she fights alongside. As she is swept into a passionate affair, in defiance of Artemis's warning, she begins to question the goddess's true intentions. Can Atalanta carve out her own legendary place in a world of men while staying true to her heart? Full of joy, passion, and adventure, Atalanta is the story of a woman who refuses to be contained. Jennifer Saint places Atalanta in the pantheon of the greatest heroes in Greek mythology, where she belongs. So apparently I am not the only person who has never heard of Atalanta, and this book is a strong stroke toward making her part of the Greek mythological canon, and someone that most people will recognize. I love the strength of the woman in this book. I love that she fights alongside the Argonauts. The Argonauts I do know. I took Latin in high school and we read Jason and the Argonauts. So really interested to read this. I have enjoyed some of the other mythological rewrites, and I think this one will be a great one. So looking forward to that. So that was my exciting list of 8 more titles that are being published on May the 9th. I hope that you enjoyed those. It was a little different list than I usually come up with. I'm actually starting to wonder if publishers focus on different kinds of books different weeks of the month. I noticed a lot of nonfiction this particular week and more children's books. And so I'm just wondering if there's any thread there or if that just happened this week. As I'm doing more of these and paying more attention to what releases when, I'm starting to notice some patterns. So I will keep an eye on that and let you know. I hope you enjoyed these 8 additional titles. I hope that you will take the opportunity to get your hands on some of them. If you enjoy this kind of video, please like and subscribe and let me know. It helps me to keep track of what my viewers really enjoy so that I can do more of those things. I also have a gift list, a wish list in the description of the video. If you'd like to gift me with a book, that would make me so happy. And bookshop.org will send it to me directly. I will give it a read and review it on the channel and give you a shout out if you'd like. So I hope you will keep coming back. I have lots more to share with you. Every week, the new releases. I've got single book reviews of things that I have read. I have backlist items coming up that you're going to be really excited about. And lots more surprises up my sleeve. So keep watching and we will continue to talk all things bookish regularly. I will see you soon. Take care. Bye.